Welcome to this week's episode, where we break down the enigma that is networking. Join Stephanie and I as we debunk commonly held myths, lay out a roadmap for networking success, and share best practices and tips along the way. If you're looking for more support and want to hang out with Stephanie and I for 3 hours, on Sunday, May 2nd, we're holding our annual networking intensive. In this 3-hour, fast-paced, interactive event, we'll together build a cold networking email, prepare informational interview questions, and hone your elevator pitch. You can learn more and register in the show notes. Without further ado, let's get into this week's episode. So here's what we're going to cover today. We're going to do a little bit of networking 101. Just, hey, here's why you network. Here's what you do. Here's what the process looks like. And then one part of the process is also preparing your resume. So we'll go through a little bit of just the path that the resume takes inside the firm. So the whole goal of networking is to not force the door open, but to have someone open it for you. That's ideal, right? Sounds like a dream, but it's not a pipe dream. It can be reality if you follow this process. So why should you network? All right. There are really 3 reasons that you should network. Number one, you want to figure out if that firm is the firm for you, right? So, hey, I've networked with Deloitte and KPMG and McKinsey, and after talking to people, I get a sense of the culture like I can't by just reading the website. I get a sense of the people. I get a sense of the work that they do from talking with them and asking them good questions that I wouldn't get just from reading kind of the bland and standard marketing jargon that they have on their websites, where all they tell you is they write on whiteboards and windows and make impact, whatever that means, right? And so you get a really good sense of the firm by talking to someone on the inside. So you get to answer that for you. You also get to answer for them, right? They get a sense, networking is really like a round zero. So they get a sense of who you are, if you're going to be a good fit, by the way that you've reached out, by the questions that you've asked, by your background. They get a sense of if you're going to be a good fit right from the jump. And so they can shepherd your application through the firm and through their process in a different way. They can flag your application. They can make sure that, hey, I've talked to this person. I know that they're legit. We're getting 20,000 applications for 300 open roles, right? Like, how do we streamline this process? Well, let's interview the people we've talked to and that we know that we liked. And so that's another reason, obviously, that you're gonna network. And right, the formal kind of culmination of that is you get a referral, right? And so if you get a referral, you are, based on our research and just the tracking we've done over the last 12 years, you're 70 to 80% more likely to land an interview invite than if you just apply blindly online. So if there's just one thing you take away from today, I want it to be that networking is critical to the recruiting process inside of management consulting. And just because of the high volume of applications and the low supply of open slots, firms really prioritize interviewing people they've already talked to. All right. And so that's why you want to network. And then on the flip side, it also helps you to tailor your application and your interview answers, right? You can name drop in your cover letter. You can talk in the interview about why you want to do consulting. You can reference a conversation. You can reference someone that you've talked to. And it just confirms for them that you know what you're talking about, that you're more likely to stick in the interview process and afterwards, because you've got an actual sense of what the work is like, what the firm is like, what the culture is like. And so this is why you want to network. I'm going to throw it over to Stephanie here, just to give us a little bit more insight or any other anecdotes that she wants to share about just the importance of networking. We'll introduce ourselves in a minute, but we wanted to just get right into the content.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Namaan. I mean, to double down on what he said, absolutely, networking is better than no networking. But ultimately, what you're trying to get is through your networking, the ultimate goal is to get a referral. And that referral from someone currently in the firm, not a recruiter, but from someone currently working in the firm, is going to hugely boost your application. Yet, even if you don't end up with a referral, if you have successfully networked in the firm and in the offices that you want to be in, that still is of great benefit to you compared to just a, off the cuff application into the online system. unless all of the stars align, you're very unlikely in that way to be able to get through what is a very narrow pipeline in these firms. So it is a huge component overall. In addition, your resume has to be perfect, right? You've got to have clearly and succinctly communicated your background and experiences. They're looking for certain things. So all those things also have to be in place. And then even among all of that cream of the crop that you're applying against, networking is what brings you to the top.
100%. And so just building on that, right? There are really two reasons that you're going to network and two mindsets that you should have. Number one, obviously getting the referral, getting your foot in the door. But number two, like I've already mentioned, conducting the research, right? This is where you figure out which firms are the right fit for you, which offices are the right fit for you, right? Which staffing model is going to work better for you, which culture you're going to fit in the most, right? Which projects are, or which industries are served out of which offices. All of this information you find out in the networking process. And so as they're evaluating you, you're also evaluating the firms, right? And then you can, right, as you go to apply, right, you have a really insider's view of, okay, here's my top office choice and here's why, because I talked to 3 people in that office and I know X, Y, and Z about that office, right? Or here's the firm that I'm really targeting or prioritizing in my search because I had conversations with 4 people there and this is what I really love about them. And so they're evaluating you, but you should also be evaluating them in the process just to make sure that you can find yourself the best fit, whether it's firm, whether it's practice area, whether it's office location. All right. And I know that people are already asking or thinking, well, why would a consultant want to talk to me? I understand why I want to talk to them. Why are they going to respond? Why are they going to want to talk to me? And there's really 3 main reasons here. And I'll let Stephanie jump in as well. But number one, in our experience, consultants are generally very pay it forward people, right? Someone at some point helped them get to where they're at, right? Because of the narrow pipeline that Stephanie mentioned, that they understand this is just the way that things work, right? And number 2, it's a part of the job, right? Recruiting is part of the job description for every single consultant at the firm, right? It's not just HR's job. It's not just a recruiter's job. Actually, inside of the firms, you really want to be talking to, as Stephanie already alluded to, consultants at your level. We'll get to this in a second, but people at your level are the ones who make the decision on who gets an interview. It's not the recruiter, it's not HR. They play more of an administrative function inside of consulting, which is different than in a lot of other industries. So it's actually the professional consultant's job to network, to review applications. And so those are the people you want to be talking to. It's one of the reasons they'll write you back. And then number 3, show me the money, right? So if you are an experienced hire or you're coming from a non-traditional background, right? If you're not in a target program that the firm is supposed to hire from, right? And you get referred in, you make it through the process, you accept an offer, the person who you referred will get a pretty nice bonus for helping the firm diversify its ranks. And so there is money on the table for these folks who you're talking to. And that's an incentive for them to respond when you reach out. Stephanie, any other color you want to add?
We'll be right back after this quick break.
Have you ever heard a new digital trend and thought to yourself, okay, does this really matter? Asking the right questions helps you cut through the noise and get down to what matters most. I'm Jim Hertzfeld, host of the What If, So What podcast, where we discover what's possible with digital and figure out how to make it real by asking what if, so what, and most importantly, now what? Subscribe and listen, and together we can turn big ideas into tangible actions so you can get shit done.
Yeah, another, I think, key point of context here, why folks will respond, is that they don't get very many networking requests of this type and of this kind of level of specificity that we're going to talk through. So even though you might think, oh gosh, they just get washed over all the time with, scores and scores of these types of networking requests, to be honest, they don't. In my, 4+ years at McKinsey, I'd say I got maybe 20 total. So we're not promising that you're going to get 100% response rate from folks. They're busy, they've got lots of different things that they're juggling in their personal and professional lives. And you may just happen to, land on somebody who is more actively involved in recruiting. There's a small portion of folks at any of these firms that are highly, highly active in recruiting, and perhaps they are overwhelmed with these requests. But the 80% plus, pool of folks at these firms are only marginally involved in recruiting and hardly get any of these types of networking requests. So it's an important tool that is an effective tool and that is underutilized.
Absolutely. Stephanie, you stole my next point. I love it. So I was gonna ask folks, how many emails a year do you think consultants get? And Stephanie's already let the cat out of the bag, right? We always get guesses ranging from like 100 to 1,000 to 10,000. We ran a survey a few years ago, to Stephanie's point, of how many emails a year consultants get on average. I'm asking them for this kind of networking conversation, and excluding the thank you emails you get after an on-campus recruiting event, the average was 7 a year. So less than 1 a month that a consultant got. And so half the battle is just showing up. And that's doubly true when it comes to networking for consulting, because if you just show up and make the request, you're automatically standing out because everyone thinks that everybody else is doing it, and therefore nobody is doing it. And so our charge to you today is take what we're talking about and go do it. And if you do it in the right way, the chances are someone will get back to you and you'll get the ball rolling.
We'll be right back after this quick message. The Networking Intensive is happening on Sunday, May 2nd. Intensive is a deep dive into all things networking for consulting. We'll cover cold reach out, including how to write an email that gets a 70% response rate. We'll build and practice elevator pitches, and we'll talk through informational interview questions. In addition, we'll talk through how to ask for a referral. It's a live 3-hour dynamic training session happening on May 2nd. If you can't make it live, the session will be recorded for later viewing. Spots are selling fast, so visit the link in the show notes to register today.
So we're about to go through the process, right? The networking process in a second and kind of get really practical on what you should be doing. But first, let's just talk about, we've already determined the importance of networking. We've already determined why they're going to write back to you. Let's just quickly talk about what matters to them. So as you're networking and as you're going to go through the process that we outline, right, there are really 3 things or 3 ways that consultants view you, right? They view you through the lens of your education. They view you through the lens of your experience, and they view you through the lens of your leadership experience. And so the thing to recognize is, okay, what filters is this person going to use to determine whether I'm a viable candidate right off the bat? And what filters are they going to use to determine if they even want to talk to me, right? So we've already determined their preference would be to talk to you, but you still have to prove that you're a viable candidate. So in your cold networking email, which we're actually going to build inside of the intensive, we don't have time to build it today, but you're going to emphasize these 3 things, right? You're going to emphasize a combination of your education, your professional experience, and your leadership. And here are just a couple of things inside of each category that resonate with consultants, right? So the pedigree of the institution that you went to, right, resonates. If you didn't go to an Ivy League school, it doesn't mean that you're not a viable candidate. It just means if you have a brand name education institution on your resume, name drop. Even more than that, they care that you have some kind of quantitative background. So either you have a STEM degree or a business-focused degree, or you've taken some of those relevant courses, and they care about your academic performance. So GPA, honors, right? Those kinds of things that just prove that you were the cream of the crop even in school. This is more relevant the more junior you are in your career. So if you've got 5, 10, 15 years of experience, this is less relevant. But if you're kind of 1 to 3 years out of school, this still matters for consultants and for consulting firms. Okay, professional experience. Again, what do they care about? They care about any brand name organizations that you've worked for or with, right? Again, that just quickly conveys credibility without having to tell me anything else. Analytical ability, anytime that you've built models, worked in Excel, worked in Tableau, extracted insights from data, anytime that you've displayed business acumen, anytime that you've risen to the top in a certain organization by winning some kind of sales award or performance award or whatever the case may be, those things just quickly tell me that, hey, you're a top performer and you've done some of the type of the work that you will have to do in consulting as well. And then leadership experience more for students, or if you're currently inside of an educational program, right? Or if you have a nonprofit background, right? Have you managed teams? Have you managed budgets? Have you driven impact? And have you done those things in a professional setting? So, captain of the soccer team doesn't necessarily count as leadership experience, but leading an on-campus organization and growing its budget and recruiting members and putting on events and closing strategic partnerships with, some other companies to come in and hold a panel, right? That's relevant experience, even if it's not totally professional. And so our rule of thumb is leadership experience is anything that you have not been paid or graded to do. If you've been paid or graded to do it, it counts as professional experience. All right. So here are the 5 rules of networking. Here's what you need to be doing. You need to be talking to the right person at the right time, at the right firm, in the right location, for the right position. All right. So let's break this down. I'm going to skip over the right person because we're going to talk about that in a second. But let's talk about timing, right? So we've got everybody here on the call from different geographical locations. You're in different stages of your career or your education. You all are on different timelines. But here's something that's interesting. For almost everybody on the call, now is the right time to begin networking. And here's why. Firms are just now finishing a burst of experienced hiring. And so if you're not in an educational program right now, firms are looking to hire you because they're making up for the lack of hiring they did last year during COVID. And they've seen an explosion of demand when it comes to consulting services this year. And for example, multiple people inside of McKinsey have told me that they cannot hire fast enough right now. And I don't know, Stephanie, if you're hearing the same thing or not, but I've heard from multiple folks that for business analyst and associate positions, so pre-MBA and post-MBA, the firm is hiring right now. And so if you are a graduating senior, if you're a graduating second-year MBA, or if you're an experienced professional looking to break into consulting, now is a great time for you to be networking because firms are staffing up for start dates that are as soon as this summer. And now if you are a rising junior or rising senior or pre-matriculation first-year MBA or rising second-year MBA, and you're going to be interviewing this fall or this winter, now's a great time to start building or expanding your network, having conversations inside of different offices, different firms with different folks. And so whether you're looking to interview immediately or whether you're preparing for interviews in the fall or this upcoming winter, now's the right time for you to be networking. It's open season. And another reason that you should be doing it in the spring is, right, summer is when folks go on vacation. Summer is when folks are also managing intern teams, right? You're taking off a little bit early. And so it's just a lot harder to catch folks in the summer than it is right now. And so if you can get ahead of kind of some of those distractions that are going to be coming down the pike for folks, especially as vaccinations ramp up and people actually decide to take the vacation time that they've accrued, you want to be talking to them now before they may be offline for a week or two this summer. And so key takeaway, now's the right time for 99% of you to start networking. Okay, at the right firm, right? So you want to make sure that there's alignment between the work that the firm does and either your interest or your subject matter expertise. And so, right, there are some firms that don't do a lot of healthcare work. And if your background is in healthcare and you want to stay in healthcare, right, it makes sense to just do some research and figure out which practice areas they emphasize, which practice areas they offer, and just make sure that the work that you want to do aligns with the work that the firm does. Pretty self-explanatory. That's like 9th grade networking, but you'd be surprised at how many times people don't just make that connection before they reach out. So just pay attention to that. In the right location. Here's where we're getting to the fun stuff. So in consulting, most firms run their recruiting and interview processes on a per office location. So it matters that you talk to people inside of the office that you're applying for. So if you are applying for the New York office, it doesn't really help you much if you talk to someone in London or Dubai. You want to be talking to someone inside of the New York office. And so making sure that you're networking with folks inside of the office locations that you're going to be applying for and that you're willing to live in is paramount. And just making sure that you have a connection to the city that you are networking in or applying for. So if you are applying for a role in the San Francisco office and they ask you, oh, why are you applying for a role in San Francisco? And you say, oh, well, I've just heard California is beautiful and I've always wanted to live there. That's not an acceptable answer, right? You have to have some kind of connection to that location to really be an attractive candidate, because I don't want you coming to San Francisco when the world opens back up and then deciding after 6 months that you hate it and that you want to transfer. And so, have some kind of story about, you took a trip to San Francisco, or you have family or friends in the area and you just really enjoyed your time there. Or if you don't have a connection with a city that you want to work in, but that's where you want to work, when things open back up, take a weekend trip there so you have a story to tell. And so you have something tangible to reference when people ask you why you want to work in that particular office. So make sure that you're networking with folks inside of the office locations that you want to be at, and make sure that you have a credible story to tell about why you want to be in that city. Last thing I'll say here, for the right position. So a lot of people come to Management Consulted and they say, hey, I've got 15 years of experience, but I'm just so passionate about consulting and I really want to break in. I'm willing to take a business analyst role just to get my foot in the door. Or I'm willing to take a lower role than I'm qualified for just to get my foot in the door. That's not how consulting firms think. They're not looking for a discount on you. They have great margins. They're not looking to put someone with 10 years of experience in a business analyst role. They're looking for the right person for the right position. So don't network and say, hey, I'm open to any position, right? Apply for and network for the position that you fit in at. And so don't undersell yourself, don't undercut yourself. That actually is unattractive in the process. It just lets me know that you don't understand how our organization functions, you don't understand where you fit, and it's not really worth talking to you. And so make sure that you're networking for the right position. The other thing I'll just quickly add here is the firms are incredibly confusing. Like McKinsey calls their post-MBA role associate, and BCG calls it something else, and Bain calls it somewhere else. So if you were to apply for the associate consultant role at Bain, you'd be applying for a pre-MBA role. But if you were to apply for the associate role at McKinsey, you'd be applying for a post-MBA role or a post-advanced degree role. So just pay attention to the job titles for each firm. Even if the wording is the same, the role may not be the same. And so you could accidentally apply for a role that's either beneath you or above you and just get filtered out automatically if you don't pay attention to that terminology and that language. And if you go to the consulting firm directory for free on our site, we have the codes for each firm, what they call each position and what level that corresponds to. So take advantage of that resource so you don't make that kind of rookie mistake. All right, let's get into how to network and what we're going to do. So you've probably already picked up on this from what Stephanie said and what I've said. There's no formula, right? There's no robotic thing or process or thing that you can do to push a button and then get a referral as the golden ticket after pushing the button. But there is a process that you can follow to maximize your chances. And here's the process. Number one, you're going to consultify your resume. Why? You're going to be asked for it at some point in the networking process. We've got a ton of free resources on the Management Consulted website to help you do this. But just some key high-level points. For most of you, it should be one-page max. It should be very metrics-focused and very impact-focused. And so that's what it means to consultify your resume. Take full advantage, work with our team on an edit, but make sure that before you start networking, your resume is tied together because at some point in the process, someone's going to ask to see it. And you don't want to do all the hard work as far as networking is concerned and then have your resume be the thing that closes the door for you. So step one, make sure the resume is as good as it can be and your story is communicated well on paper. The other thing that's going to do for you is going through and either working with us or doing it yourself, reshaping your bullet points, thinking through your stories, thinking about the impact that you've driven, thinking about the metrics that you can incorporate into your stories. It's going to make your verbal presentation that much more powerful. So when you're giving your elevator pitch, when you're talking to people on the phone or in real life, if you've already thought through your experience in this way from their perspective, it's going to make that verbal delivery that much more powerful as well. So going through the resume first is not just practically the right thing to do, but it's also a powerful exercise to prepare you for the networking encounters as well. Okay, step 2, resume's ready. Now we're time to reach out. Really, this is a 2-pronged step 2. So step 1 is research. Stephanie already mentioned this, right? LinkedIn is your best friend when it comes to research. You can quickly figure out, hey, Stephanie is at this at post-MBA level, and she's at McKinsey, and she's in Minneapolis. That's the office I want to be in. And also, I went to Fuqua. Okay, wow, amazing. I just found the right person on LinkedIn that I want to talk to. What you do then is you use LinkedIn for the research, but you reach out directly via email. We've already harped on this, right? But consultants get 5 to 8 emails a year from people asking for a networking conversation. Why don't you want to reach out via LinkedIn? A couple reasons. Number 1, it's becoming more and more like social media, and it's easy for messages to get lost in somebody's mailbox. Number 2, LinkedIn is where a lot of consultants go to look for or think about their next job, right? Their inbox is full of messages from headhunters. So they're not necessarily in the headspace when they're on LinkedIn to be thinking about their current job responsibilities. Number 3, if your message is successful, you're going to have to move the conversation over to email anyways to calendar it. So you might as well skip all of that headache and all of that friction and just write them an email to begin with. You know they're going to see it. You know they're on their email every day. It's a lot harder to ignore, and it just stands out more. All right, so find the people via LinkedIn, write them directly. And again, if you don't know the email moniker for McKinsey or for Bain or for Deloitte or for Clearview, whatever the firm may be, you can find those email monikers inside of our consulting firm directory. They're all there. It's completely free. All right. And then what you're going to want to do in that email, and we're going to go in depth on this in the intensive in a couple of weeks, is you're going to want to quickly convey competency. Here's who I am. Here's what I've done. Here's why you want to talk to me. And then the specific ask is for a call, right? The email should convert to a call. And then inside of the call, that's your informational interview. You're going to ask 2 to 3 specific questions. You're going to lead with an agenda. You're going to convey incredible executive presence. You're going to end on time. And before you end on time, you're going to ask for a referral. And so all of those things, right? Leading with an agenda, driving the conversation, asking the right questions, asking for the referral. We're going to spend a whole hour inside of the intensive talking about that. We would do it a disservice if we quickly went over it now. But just know that the process is resume, research, email that converts to an informational interview call. This call should be no longer than 15 minutes. You should set an agenda up front, ask a couple of specific questions, the answers to which you cannot find on the website or online, right? People loved being asked questions about themselves. So the more personal, the more specific, the more personable, the more positive you can make those questions, the better. And we'll build some of those inside the intensive. And again, at the end of that call, you're going to ask for a referral. And to a lot of you, that sounds incredibly transactional. That sounds incredibly bold, right? Like, you mean I'm only going to write them once and I'm only going to get on one phone call with them and then I'm going to ask them for a referral and that's going to be it? Like, what about building a relationship for a few months? What about them getting to know me? To be 100% honest with you, most of them don't want to get to know you right now beyond this, right? So think about it like dating, right? You're going to make your first date pretty low stakes. You're not going to, if you're normal, right, you're not going to go all out and plan this 6-hour date for your first date, right? You're going to get to know each other slowly. And so, right, from a consultant's perspective, they're looking at this as a first date. All they want to know after this is this person a viable candidate for me to refer on? And they'll know within the first 2 minutes of you talking to them on that call if they're going to refer you or not. They don't need any more touch points with you. They don't need any more exposure to you. They don't necessarily want it because they're busy. They want the best bang for their buck, right? If they're going to get a referral bonus, they want to spend the least amount of time getting it, especially because they're going to get all the information from you that they need in that first call. they'll build a relationship with you when you're a colleague. They don't necessarily want that relationship now. And so there are always exceptions to this. Some of them will ask you for a follow-up call. They'll ask you for follow-up touch points. If they ask you, that's great. Do those. But your goal should be to be one and done, right? One email, one call, ask for the referral. If they say yes, you're done. If they say no, you're going to get some incredibly useful information from them. You say, hey, thank you so much. What can I do to improve my profile and improve my chances to where you would feel comfortable giving me a referral? And you're going to get some incredibly valuable feedback straight from the horse's mouth as to what you can do to improve your chances before you apply. So a yes is obviously valuable, but so is a no. And so that request for a referral is key. A common mistake that people make is they have the call, they don't have an ask, and then it's awkward to reach back out later. And so follow this process and know that it's okay for it to be transactional.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode. If anything that we shared changed your paradigm on networking, shoot us an email and let us know. You'll find that email address in the show notes. As always, if you listen on Apple Podcasts, we'd love a review and a rating. And don't forget, join us for the Networking Intensive, happening May 2nd from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. Eastern. Together, we'll write a cold networking email, we'll prepare informational interview questions, and we'll hone your elevator pitch. You're not going to want to miss it. You can learn more and register via the link in the show notes. As always, we'll see you next week.